What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and it is time for my second full first round mock draft for every single team in the NFL, better known as my mock draft 2.0. Mock draft 1.0 might have been the most positive mock draft I've ever done, at least looking at the comment section below. Seemed like pretty much every fan base was fairly represented, and represented well. I guess I did my part. There might have been one or two debatable picks, but outside of that, I've never had so many people say this is a good mock for my team, because obviously it's much easier for people to come click on the internet and call, oh my god, that guy is mentally ill, he should not be making YouTube videos. So I kind of credit that to, you know, the amount of time and effort I've kind of looked in each individual teams, looking at what their strengths, their weaknesses are, looking at where potential free agents may go and stuff like that. So hopefully mock draft 2.0 could be as well received. Yeah, I plan on doing one mock a month. I'm going to do it at the end of every single month. And then once the first wave of free agency happens, because really it is tough to do mock drafts until free agency, I'm probably going to do a full 7-round mock for every single team once I get a little bit more of a clear picture. I did that last year. You guys seemed to very much enjoy it. I'm not going to rate as long as I did last year. Last year was kind of rushed near the end. I'm going to evenly pace it out so that we can get through all 32 teams, and I won't be overwhelmed. But that being said, it's time to do, still at this point, an early mock draft. And we're going to start with the, as of week 16, draft order. And with the first overall pick, the Cleveland Browns are 100% confirmed to have the number 1 overall pick. They're on the clock, and I have them selecting Josh Rosen, the quarterback from UCLA. In mock draft 1, I had them selecting Saquon Barkley. But, you know, the more I think Saquon Barkley would be a nice fit there, I just think that there's a reputation that you can get running backs later, seeing the success of Alvin Kamara and Kareem Hunt, for example. And more so, the biggest thing for the Browns is if, there is one side where giving up on Deshaun Kaiser, a second-round pick right now, is the sign of a bad team. They have a new front office, so that front office now, the brand new one, I think it's Dorsey or something like that. There's no real reputation if they decide to move on from Kaiser, because that was the previous regime. And I think if they pass on another quarterback like they have done with, say, Deshaun Watson, Mitchell Trubisky, Carson Wentz, it's going to be way worse than if they do draft a quarterback, take a gamble on one of these sure things for a franchise, and they turn out to be a bust. So, for that being said, I'm selecting Josh Rosen, like I said, the quarterback from UCLA. I think he's the best quarterback in this year's draft class. I think he's the safest. I don't think he's as high of a ceiling as another quarterback we're going to talk about very, very shortly. But I think when, you put it all together, you look at what guy in this current quarterback class is good. I think Rosen is very, very solid. Has some momentary lapses in judgment. But, I mean, what young quarterback doesn't really have that? That's something that does get fixed the more experience and the more comfortable you get. But when you look at Josh Rosen, I think he's the most pro-ready quarterback out of all the quarterbacks in this year's draft class. And the Browns kind of need a pro-ready quarterback. They have the offensive line there. That's why I think maybe they can use a second round. They have a bunch of draft picks in the second and third rounds. Use that to maybe go out and get an upgrade over Isaiah Crowell. So that being said, I have Josh Rosen going to the Cleveland Browns. I think it'd be a good pick. Plus, they pick again at 4. 2 top 5 picks. What is this? A typical Madden rebuild? What? So we'll talk about the Browns in just a little bit. Moving on to pick number 2, it is the New York Giants. In mock draft 1, where the Giants were picking at number 3, I have them taking Josh Rosen. He's no longer there. So the Giants, who will have a new GM, a new head coach, will go out and get their quarterback, and they're going to be selecting Sam Darnold, the quarterback from USC. Personally, I do see him being overrated. I definitely don't think the hype matches his play this year for USC. There are reports that he may decide to go back, which might not be the worst thing he could do. But if he, it's one of those things, if he can get wind that maybe the Browns aren't looking this way, they're definitely going to Josh Rosen, then Darnold may go, okay, well then I definitely would like to go to New York. New York's a much more favorable situation, throwing to Odell Beckham, throwing to Evan Gingram, throwing to Sterling Shepard, throwing to Brandon Marshall. What a get that was. But, I think that whatever comes about in terms of the hiring process for the GM and the coach for the Giants, it's going to be in part of where do you take it from here? The Giants were never expecting really to have a top 10 pick. So this is your chance to get Eli's replacement. This is your chance to get the quarterback. So I think they get Darnold. I think Darnold is not ready to start year 1. So this is all on the assumption that Darnold does declare. You could hold on to Eli Manning. If I was the Giants, I don't necessarily know what's going on with Davis Webb. I really did like Davis Webb last year. You get Eli Manning, have him play there for 1 year, have Sam Darnold sit behind him, and then 2019 is the year that everything goes full blow. Because Eli Manning's still a capable quarterback. He's definitely on the downswing of his career. But to be a placeholder for a guy like Sam Darnold that really kind of needs to get that, I don't want to say Jared Goff. That's kind of a rough scenario because I think Jared Goff was much more a change in coach and McVay from Fisher. But, he didn't play pretty much the whole season. Then he finally came on. Didn't look so hot, but, now we see what happens in 2016 with Jared Goff. So I think something similar like that, just in least of how, tight you keep Sam Darnold in terms of the depth chart at that number 2 spot and have Eli play ahead of him. I think that's a really good situation for a young quarterback to go into New York, and that's a good fit for Mr. Sam Darnold. Pick number 3 is the Indianapolis Colts. In mock draft 1, I had the Colts taking Christian Wilkins, a defensive lineman. That was really one of the only picks I wasn't a huge fan of. It just kind of, the Colts have a bunch of holes that they can potentially fill. I went the Colts here in mock draft 2, going with Saquon Barkley, the running back from Penn State. I think when the Colts are at this type of position, it's pretty much, okay, this year with Jacoby Brissett and all the injuries, stuff like that, throw it in the trash can. Next year, we're going to have Andrew Luck. We're going to have a quarterback that can play like an MVP candidate. What is the best thing we can do to give this guy a chance to win? And when you have maybe the most talented player, regardless of position in the draft, sitting in your lap at number 3 with an aging Frank Gore, who, let's be honest, Marlon Mack's going to be a change of pace back. When you look at that offense, get the best offensive player available. Personally, you could go tackle. You could maybe go Connor Williams or Orlando Brown, someone if you value that. Defensive, like I said, you could go edge rush, maybe a Bradley Chubb. When I look at this, I just see them as let's get Andrew Luck something shiny to help him out in offense. So it's not Andrew Luck throwing for fringe 5,000 yards, getting in kind of like a Drew Brees Saints where it's you win or lose on the arm of your quarterback. Get in a guy like Saquon Barkley and Andrew Luck building toward the future. Those are 2 massive pieces to the puzzle. Add in T.Y. Hilton, add in Jack Doyle, that's serviceable. That offensive line certainly could use some work. That's definitely where I would invest a lot of the picks in the remainder of the draft class. But I think getting debatably the best player in the offense to replace an aging Frank Gore, who's been serviceable. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, but he's 34. Get a tenfold in terms of upside replacement in Saquon Barkley, who could start day 1. I think Colt fans are going to like that one. Going to pick number 4 in the mock draft, it's the Cleveland Browns again. And in my first mock draft, I had the Browns with their second pick going Minkah Fitzpatrick, the defensive back from Alabama. And in this mock draft, the Cleveland Browns are going with Minkah Fitzpatrick, the defensive back from Alabama. If the Browns can land Rosen, who turns out to be a franchise QB, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's kind of almost in that consensus territory of the best defenseman that is going to be entering this draft, I mean, when you look at the Cleveland Browns secondary, you got Jabril Peppers, who does not have a defined role. He's a guy that you can't say he's a bust already, but I mean, is there really a spot for him right now? Is as a safety? I don't think so. Maybe have him as a gimmicky linebacker, a money backer, and a Deion Buchanan role. I think that's probably his best bet. But when you look at the secondary, you have Jason McCourty, who played well, but he's essentially on a Band-Aid 1-year kind of deal. You have Bodie Calhoun, who's serviceable. Jamar Taylor, serviceable. At safety, you got Kendrick. Like I said, you go best player available. A guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick, Greg Williams, may see him as his corner, may see him as a safety. You get that versatility, and Minkah Fitzpatrick can be, in terms of potential, in terms of pedigree, the next kind of Landon Collins type player in terms of coming out of Alabama, pro-ready from a pro-ready defense, and can pick it up immediately. That is the kind of prospect that Cleveland Browns need to get on. They need to go with the safe. Like, the best thing for the Browns at this spot, number 4, they have to go with the best safe prospect available. It could very well be Saquon Barkley. I think they go defense, and they add in Minkah Fitzpatrick. Great. It's perfect fit. A perfect fit for that defense. Moving on to pick number 5. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And in my first mock draft, I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Josh Jackson, the corner from Iowa. That was way back when they were selected at pick 13. Now they're all the way at 5. I have them going defensive end. I have them selecting Bradley Chubb, the defensive end from NC State. I think Chubb is the best edge rusher in this year's draft class. Incredibly versatile, incredibly well-rounded. And when you watch the Bucs play, I think the Bucs personally here, I've kind of made corner their third position of need. I think they either go tackle or they go defensive end. And there's going to be a really good tackler from Texas still available. But I think when you look at the offense, you're like, Jameis Winston should be good enough to maybe extend plays enough that maybe we can wait to the second round, third round to go after some offensive linemen. Our edge rush is terrible. Gerald McCoy's a beast. Chris Baker's, we all know my thoughts on Chris Baker, but their edge rush is really, really bad. I don't know what's going on with Noah Spence. I don't know if it was a product of injuries, but the William Golston contract was the most absurd contract I've ever seen. Like, that guy sucks. Why is he getting paid? I don't think I've ever seen him get a sack in my life. And he got, like a $30-40 million contract or something like that. Go out, get Bradley Chubb. He is a guy, day one, pro-ready, will be able to get this team, I would say, if he's a starter, 7-8 sacks, which is more than probably anyone on the Bucs have had this year for alone. So I think Bradley Chubb, a terrific fit for the Bucs. Bucs need to get better on the lines, be it on offense or defense, and Chubb right now is the best player available. Going to pick number 6, it's the Denver Broncos in mock draft 1. I had the Denver Broncos selecting at number 4, Sam Darnold. Now, they've, other teams have sucked. They've kind of, had a couple games or so that were all right. They are now picking at 6, and I am selecting Connor Williams, the offensive tackle from Texas. I'm betting on the Denver Broncos to land one of these quarterbacks in free agency. That's why you're going to see some of these QBs maybe slip a little bit, because there is going to be a bunch of big names. Alex Smith, Kirk Cousins, Tyrod Taylor. Not so much Tyrod. I think between Alex Smith and Kirk Cousins, two teams that need quarterbacks, especially in the realms of making a mock draft. They're going to get those two in free agency. I think the Broncos, you've seen the success with Peyton Manning. John Elway's not afraid to go out and get an old proven commodity and then kind of waiting a little bit to get a replacement. And, unlike Peyton Manning, where you get him for, 2-3 years, I think a guy like Alex Smith, you might be able to get 4 or 5. Same thing with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins probably is good for another 7-8 years. I think the Denver Broncos might be a good fit for Alex Smith. So that being said, they go tackle with Connor Williams from Texas, who is debatably the top tackle in this year's draft class. They selected a tackle last year in Garrett Bowles. I think Garrett Bowles is much more suited at the right tackle spot than he is the left tackle, which is where he played this year. With Ronald Leary, who's very, very solid, Paradis, who's a very capable center, you would have Bowles at right tackle. Now you would have Connor Williams, who's a bona fide starter day one at left tackle. That is a very good offensive line. That is an offensive line that can succeed with Alex Smith at quarterback. Hand the ball out to C.J. Anderson, Devontae Booker. They can run the ball. They can get back kind of to that formula that they had when they won the Super Bowl. Not the 50 touchdown Peyton Manning. You're not going to get that at Alex Smith. But Alex Smith can game manage. He can have potential boom or bust games. You have the wide receivers there. That's another thing that kind of comes into this pick. Broncos don't really have the time to draft a quarterback and develop him. They need to get a guy right now while the iron is hot, while Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas are really entering kind of the downswing of their career. They only have, I would say, a year or two left that Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders will be regarded as two of the top wide receiver tandems in the NFL. You need to get a ready now quarterback, and you're just not going to get that with the QBs that I think will be here. So go shore up that offensive line. The defense is good, and you'll be fine. Moving on to pick number 7, the New York Jets. In mock draft 1, I had the Jets selecting Josh Allen, the quarterback from Miami. Now they are sitting here at pick 7. I had them taking a quarterback, and I still think they might go Josh Allen. But just to be different and just to sink in my head, this could very well be a scenario. I had them selecting Baker Mayfield, the quarterback from Oklahoma. This is under the assumption Baker Mayfield somehow, some way leads the Sooners to a national title. I think Baker Mayfield has played his way in. You look at Josh Rosen, I see a guy that real high bust potential. As someone that has watched a lot of Carson Wentz, Josh Allen does remind me a lot of Carson Wentz. I'm pretty sure North Dakota State's head coach or whatever, or OC or something, is now Wyoming's coach, so that you have those ties with Carson Wentz. That's probably why they play style was very, very similar. But I think when you get a guy like Baker Mayfield, I think he's a little more pro-ready. You have the background. His ceiling's definitely not as high as Josh Allen, but I think when you're the Jets, it's time to go with a guy that from day one can contend for that starting job. Not a Bryce Petty, not a Christian Hackenberg, nothing like that. Get a guy that is more proven, more pro-ready, that could still very well turn into a franchise quarterback, less of a project, if you will. And I think that's Baker Mayfield at this given point in time. I think Baker Mayfield, very polarizing figure. A lot of people don't even know if he's going to go in the first round or not. I think he's a first-round talent, but I completely understand the size, the off-field, all that stuff. But when I look at Baker Mayfield, the kind of mentality that he has, leads me to believe he could be a day one starter. If they want to bring back Josh McCown, from all accounts, McCown is a capable starter for this Jets team. You don't have to rush in whatever QB, be it Josh Allen or be it a Baker Mayfield. It's a decent scenario, not as good as maybe say the New York Giants, who can roll with Eli Manning for the time being. But I think Baker Mayfield to the Jets is a very plausible scenario if they are in the market for a quarterback with a first-round pick, which I believe they will be. Going to pick number 8, playing themselves out of a draft pick with the emergence of Jimmy G. The 49ers are now picking at 8. Originally, I had them at number 2 in my mock draft, selecting Connor Williams, the tackle from Texas. Now I have them just best player available. You got to protect Jimmy G. Connor Williams is off the board, so they have them selecting Quentin Nelson, the offensive guard from Notre Dame. Hopefully, what's his name? Josh Garnett from Stanford, who I actually really like. Hopefully he can put it together, become a serviceable starter, and shores up one of the probably right guard spot. So when you look at the team, just get an offensive lineman. I still firmly believe that Carlos Hyde needs to get re-signed for the 49ers. I think he is a very talented running back. I don't know, man. This is like actually something I want if there's a Niner fan watching this. Because I have a buddy that's a Niner fan. He says Carlos Hyde's been our best player. I don't know why. For a team that still is lacking in talent, you would just let a running back who's 26 in his prime just walk away for nothing. Why? If you're one of those people that says, we should get a running back or something like that, why don't you want to re-sign Carlos Hyde? I mean, sure, he's, occasional injury here and there, but when he's on the field, he is electrifying. He is very, very good. He can catch the ball in the backfield. He can pretty much do everything that Kyle Shanahan wants to run, and he's a good fit with Breida back there. So I think they go offensive line. You get Quentin Nelson, who might be maybe the most sure thing in this year's draft class. It's not sexy to say that maybe the most sure thing is an offensive lineman, but I'd say probably right there with Saquon Barkley, Quentin Nelson is as sure a thing as I can say in this draft class as far as the offensive side of the ball, and that'd be a good safe pick at a position of need for the San Francisco 49ers to protect what looks like their next franchise quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. Going to pick number 9, we have the Chicago Bears, who in mock draft number 1 at pick 6, I had them taking Calvin Ridley. Now they're here at 9. Played some good football. I had them, again, staying with that pick, getting Calvin Ridley, the wide receiver from Alabama. Again, comes back to the whole, it's tough doing mock drafts before free agency. I definitely can see the Bears splurging on a wide receiver in free agency. There's going to be actually a fairly decent market for wide receivers, but I still think that if they get Mitchell Trubisky, the right kind of wide receivers, and they fire John Fox and go with an offensive-minded coach, they could be the Philadelphia Eagles of 2018. I don't think they're going to be as good as Philly. I'm not saying the Bears are somehow going to go 14-2 or something, 13-3, but I think that they could be, right now it doesn't really look like a trajectory. Next year would be playoffs. You look at the Bears team, I'd be like, oh yeah, maybe 2 or 3 years from now. I think if they get some wide receivers and they put weapons around Trubisky, I think they could be like a wild card team. It's going to be tough to compete with the Packers there. The Lions are a very solid team. The Vikings, obviously we saw with the Vikings, is a very, very tough division. But I think they could very well be a fringe playoff team next season if they get some playmakers. And Calvin Ridley, I think, is the safest wide receiver in this year's draft class. Not necessarily have the highest ceiling, but again, I think when you're a team like the Bears, you need to get a sure thing for Trubisky. And I think a guy like Calvin Ridley, best case, could emerge as a wide receiver 1 on the outside. Worst case, I think he's still going to be a very good slot wide receiver, kind of like a Golden Tate. So there you go, Bears. Get yourself a good wide receiver. Going to pick number 10, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, who in mock draft 1, they were picking at number 7. I had them taking Mike McGlinchey from Notre Dame. Here at 10, I have them once again taking Mike McGlinchey, the tackle from Notre Dame. Now, McGlinchey is very hot and cold. When he's hot, he looks like he could be a top 5 pick at tackle. He looks like a sure thing. When he's cold, when he's going up against really, really good speed rushers, not so hot. But I think when you are the Bengals, you're going to take the average of all those things and say, we need a tackle bad. Left or right tackle. I think a guy like Mike McGlinchey, who has that versatility to play left or right, is added bonus for the Cincinnati Bengals here, who need to get better at the offensive tackle position. When I look at the 2 big positions of need for the Bengals, I think it's the tackle position and the linebacker spot. I think they have a better chance of hitting on a linebacker with their second pick than they would hitting on a tackle with their second pick. So that's why I have in the first round, they go Mike McGlinchey, who again, like I said, could be a little boomer bust at the tackle spot. And that's not something they want to hear with Jake Fisher and the Cedric Bouilliers, which they definitely were busts that were high picks. But I think McGlinchey, you kind of have to gamble. And I would say all in all, McGlinchey will be a solid tackle in the NFL worst case scenario. I don't think he has that bust territory, because he is still at the end of the day will be a big mauler of a tackle. It's just more so, can he develop the footwork needed to deal with the speed rushers in the NFL. But you got to protect Dalton. You got to create some lanes for Mr. Joe Mixon, and McGlinchey is the best option to do that. Go to pick number 11. We have the Oakland Raiders, who in mock draft 1, I had the Raiders at pick 9, selecting Malik Jefferson, the linebacker from Texas. I have changed my opinion on what is a top linebacker. I still have the Raiders going LB. And at pick 11, I have them going Roquan Smith, the linebacker from Georgia. He is a monster, man. I don't want to say next to Georgia just straight up running the ball for 400 yards a game. Roquan Smith is the best defenseman in terms of like MVP. In terms of the most important defenseman of all 4 teams in the college football playoff between Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Georgia, I think Roquan Smith is the biggest X factor out of all those teams. Not Minka Fitzpatrick, not Clelin Ferrell, not Christian Wilkins. It's him. I think Roquan Smith is a dynamic linebacker, a little bit undersized. He'll probably be, 230 in that range. But when you look at the Raiders, man, they need linebackers in a big way. You got Navarro Bowman as a Band-Aid. That is not a Band-Aid that you want to let wear off and not have a new, it's not a Band-Aid you want to rip off and you still got a scab and it reopens it and it's bloody and you have nothing to cover it up. Getting a little descriptive there. You want to get a guy like Roquan Smith. Maybe you bring back Bowman for another year. They run that 3-4. You need 2 middle linebackers. Either way, Roquan Smith is a stud at that linebacker spot. Sideline to sideline, drop back into coverage, can rush the quarterback, can get in the backfield and stop linebackers. Great pick. Could be the next Ryan Shazier. Go out and get him. Go to pick number 12, the Miami Dolphins, who in mock draft number 1, I have them selecting Quentin Nelson, the guard from Notre Dame. He's no longer on the board, so I have them going with Malik Jefferson, the linebacker from Texas. A little bit of a run on linebackers, but when I look at the Miami Dolphins, it's tough because they could very well go quarterback if they decide they want to move on from Ryan Tannehill. Maybe go with Lamar Jackson, make my rebuild come true, my famous Madden 17 rebuild. They can move on from Ndamukong Suh. I don't know how feasible that is with the contract and the dead money, but if they decide to go that way, there's a couple juicy defensive tackles sitting here like a Christian Wilkins or not, but it's too tough to foresee that. Looking at the holes they have right now and top prospects, linebacker is very inconsistent. The fact that you kind of have to rely on Lawrence Timmons and others to try to make some plays for you is not so hot. I think when you look at what their linebacking core is, if you can get a healthy Kiko Alonso, a healthy Raekwon McMillan, you throw in Malik Jefferson there, that is now becoming a linebacking core with a lot of upside. And I think for the Miami Dolphins, they got to get better on defense first and foremost. Luckily enough for them, running back was probably going to be a need with J.J. traded to the Eagles, but Kenyon Drake has emerged as a very capable starting running back going forward. I think a guy like Malik Jefferson brings the most value to the Dolphins here at pick number 12. On to pick number 13, we have the Arizona Cardinals. Bruce Arians announcing that this, 2016 is not going to be his last season, 2017 or whatever. So Lou will be back. So I think he's going to go after QB. You kind of have to, because it looks like Palmer will retire. I have them going Josh Allen, the quarterback from Wyoming. Now, I've had in my mock draft 1 going Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson, I personally would like to see Lamar Jackson go over Josh Allen. I think Lamar Jackson's going to be a stud, but I think when you're Bruce Arians, he's never really had that true mobile quarterback. He kind of needs the guy that can develop as a pocket passer, and if that's what you want in a quarterback, Josh Allen, who watched the tape at Wyoming, it looks like Carson Wentz. I'm not going to say he's good as Carson Wentz. I'm not going to say that he's as pro-ready as Carson Wentz was, even though that was a big question mark, and we were, Carson Wentz, you can, say what you want about his rookie season. I still think he did a very, very good job, but when you look at the simple. Here's easy. Look at the top 10 plays from Carson Wentz this year for the Philadelphia Eagles, and then look at the top 10 plays for Josh Allen for Wyoming his final year. A lot of similarities. They're guys that can scramble when they need to, extend plays with their feet, has a big arm, good accuracy. I think that's tick, tick, tick for what Bruce Arians wants in a quarterback. And again, another team that's window's kind of small, so they'd hope Josh Allen can get in, somehow, some way, start right away. They may be also a prime team to land a big quarterback in free agency, which would also still, make sense. If they can only get a small window quarterback. Maybe if they get Alex Smith, for example, even though we had Smith, potentially, hypothetically going to the Broncos, if the Cardinals could land Alex Smith for even 2 years or something like that, have Josh Allen sitting there waiting, learning, don't rush him, and then, when all is said and done, old BA is setting up the next QB, or hell, maybe Bruce Arians is going to coach till he's 97, and he'll be able to see the fruits of his labor by waiting and taking the slow approach with Josh Allen. I think when you're the Cardinals and you have no real talent at the QB spot, Drew Stanton and Blaine Gabbert, I think you have to grab your QB here. Not trade up, don't reach for anything. I think Josh Allen at 13 is a lot more appropriate than, say, top 5, like we've seen him go in a couple other mock drafts. Going to pick number 14, we have the Washington Redskins. In mock number 1 for the Redskins, I have them selecting Cortland Sutton, the wide receiver from SMU. This draft, a little bit different. We're going defensive side of the ball, and we're going Derwin James, the safety from Florida State. Now, there's going to be, this pick happens, there's going to be lots of similarities. John, is he the next Sean Taylor? Do we have the next Sean Taylor right here? And I think, that's a somewhat fair analysis. But when I look at the Washington Redskins, there is uncertainty at the safety position. You could even get younger at corner if you wanted to, but you have D'Angelo Hall. You got Monte Nicholson, who surprised a couple. But, I mean, Monte Nicholson, again, is he a certified starter? Is he good enough to be the starter going into 2018? You got, Sua Cravens. There's a bunch of, he looks like a little bit of a head case a little bit. Haven't really followed it, but I remember he missed the game against the Eagles just because he thought about retiring or something crazy like that. So there's uncertainty at the safety spot here. And to get an athletic freak like Derwin James, who not only can come in and play safety, he can play a little bit of a hybrid linebacker in their 3-4 if they wanted to. They can put him all over the field. He's a much more pro-ready version of kind of what everyone envisioned Jabril Peppers were going to be last year coming out of Michigan, and now as a member of the Cleveland Browns. So I think it'll be a good pick. I mean, there's plenty of ways that the Redskins could go right now. If they stay at this 14-15 range, they could go wide receiver, they could go offensive line, they could go quarterback if they lose Kirk Cousins. I mean, honestly, if they pick here and they lose Kirk Cousins, it's probably going to be a quarterback, be it Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Mason Rudolph, Lamar Jackson. But on the assumption that, maybe they can somehow, some way keep old Kirk, I think Derwin James at the safety spot would be a great pick and great fit for that defense, even though I don't really want to see him if he does pan out that freak athlete that he is as an Eagle fan. Go to pick number 15, we have the Green Bay Packers, who in mock draft number 1, I had the Green Bay Packers selecting Arden Key, the edge rusher from LSU. And this mock draft, I had them going with a down lineman, a defensive end, if you will. And his name is Christian Wilkins, the defensive end from Clemson. When you look at the Packers, there is plenty of spots they could look at trying to improve upon. Tight end, they could look at getting more depth in the offensive line. They could look at really almost anywhere in the secondary just to try to get more turnovers back there. But I think when you look at where it comes from, kind of look at the Eagles a little bit. The Eagles defense has been successful, not with the best of corners, but because their edge rush is very, very good. We can put pressure on the quarterback. And, Kenny Clark is starting to, kind of turn that corner, become a much better pro. You got Mike Daniels, who's still playing at a fairly high level, but, he's getting up there in age a little bit. You get a guy like Christian Wilkins. You got a guy that's going to be a monster, man. Christian Wilkins is a perfect fit for the Green Bay Packers if they still have Dom Capers as their DC. I don't know. There may be some uncertainty there. But, the number one thing, I've asked Packer fans, because Packers are kind of a tough team to mock, and I still see more people are not saying we got to get more pressure on the quarterback. And when you look at that, I mean, you could go outside linebacker, but you already kind of have Nick Perry, you have Clay Matthews. I don't know if he's going to return or not. Blake Martinez had a really good season. So that means, the linebacking core probably could still hold you over. But when you look at that defensive line and the prospects available, Christian Wilkins is a very easy pick here for the Green Bay Packers to make. Going to pick 16, we have the Chargers, who in mock draft number 1, I had them selecting Orlando Brown, the tackle from Oklahoma. In mock draft 2, staying with that pick, Orlando Brown, the tackle from Oklahoma. Protect Mr. Phillip Rivers. They need a right tackle. Orlando Brown, though he played left tackle this year in Oklahoma, he is a right tackle in the NFL. He is a mauler. He's a 6 foot, I don't know what he is, 6'8", 350-pound destroyer of worlds. Put him on that defensive line with Forrest Lamp and Dan Feeney, and the Chargers suddenly have a much more complete team. They finally, if Anthony Lynn, he wants to run the ball. He's a running backs coach by trade. He probably is a little bit frustrated that, we got to abandon the run with Melvin Gordon. Let's just start chucking the ball. You get a guy like Orlando Brown, you solidify that offensive line. Hopefully it can be healthy. I mean, healthy and the Chargers don't really go in the same sentence more often than not. I think Orlando Brown, like I said, but I'm not going to go too in-depth because we talked about it in the first mock. I think offensive tackle would be a instant yes position for the Chargers to improve upon. Going to pick number 17, the first pick of 2 for the Buffalo Bills. So for the first pick of the Bills in NFL mock draft 1, either selecting James Washington, the wide receiver from Oklahoma State. In this mock draft, I am selecting Daron Payne, the defensive tackle from Alabama. He was actually my second pick in my first mock for the Bills. I'm just kind of sliding a little bit because you look at the Bills, man, no Marcel Darius. Kyle Williams is getting old. They got to get someone there for Sean McDermott's defense. And a 4-3 D tackle with Christian Wilkins already off the board. I think Daron Payne is a guy that's going to rise up a lot of teams' draft boards, much like my boy from Florida, Taven Bryan. That actually could be a low-key sleeper pick here for the Bills. I think defensive tackle is a major position of need to improve that defensive line. Daron Payne, man, he is very, very good. Good against the run, good against the pass. You know, a little bit more upside than, say, the last couple good defensive tackle prospects like Jaron Reed or Ashawn Robinson. I mean, assuming that John Allen is a defensive end, that's how you're classifying, which I did. So, you know, Daron Payne, instant starter, day one starter as a rookie for the Buffalo Bills. Great pick at 17. Going to pick number 18 with the Detroit Lions, who in mock draft number 1, we had the Lions going Bradley Chubb, slipping a lot. We have now Bradley Chubb going as a top 5 pick. So the Detroit Lions are going with a running back. They're going Darius Geis, the running back from LSU. Don't get it twisted. Geis is a first-round talent at the running back spot. And when you look at the Lions, you need to somehow find a way to get them in running attack. That's why I don't buy into the hype of Jim Bob Cooter being a head coach. If you're an offensive coordinator and your team hasn't run for 100 yards in I don't know how many games, you're not getting a head coaching job. It's not college football. It's not like what the Lions are doing is not getting them into the playoffs. What the Lions are doing is make them, they're an exciting team to watch. Yeah, they're competitive, but they're never going to be taken seriously as a legitimate team until they get that balance. So, you get that balance by getting a stud running back. You don't have it, and I still think, personally, I would give Zach Zellner 30 carries a game to see what he can do. But you don't have that in Theo Riddick. He's a good third down back. Amir Abdullah has failed. I'm not going to say miserably, but he's failed to become a legit game changer at the NFL level. So you go out and get a guy like Darius Geis who can do it all. Violent runner. Very, very good production. I think if Saquon Barkley didn't exist, Darius Geis would have had a much more bigger impact. Plus, he's on LSU. LSU, not very good. So I think in terms of running back prospects, there's a lot of big names. Bryce Love, you got Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Rashad Penny, a couple other running backs that are really good talents. Royce Freeman, but I think Darius Geis is a complete back, a complete runner, very, very safe pick. I think Darius Geis can walk into a lot of teams that need a running back day one and start out. So I think that's a very safe pick for the Lions. He's actually a pretty popular mock draft pick for the Lions. So go out and get yourself a running back and try to break that 100-yard curse, which I think Geis certainly has more than enough talent to do that. Go to pick number 19. We have the Dallas Cowboys. Who in mock draft 1? The Dallas Cowboys. I have them selecting Roquan Smith, the linebacker for Georgia. He's no longer on the board, so we are still staying at the linebacker spot. We're going with Shawn Evans, a linebacker from Alabama. Very talented linebacker, very safe pick. Easy pick here for the Dallas Cowboys. Jalen Smith is, unfortunately, he was so good at Notre Dame, but unfortunately he's not the same type of player he was. And you pretty much saw the Dallas Cowboys, they implode when they don't have Tyron Smith and if they don't have Sean Lee. And Sean Lee is out more than Tyron Smith, so get a linebacker so that in case that happens, you don't implode. As Skip Bayless would say, Sean Lee. If Sean Lee played this whole year, we all know the Dallas Cowboys would have went 16-0, probably 19-0. But go get yourself a linebacker. It's not just like you draft Rashawn Evans and he's going to, only be depth and only wait for Sean Lee to go down. Sean Lee, outside linebacker. Rashawn Evans could start pretty much everywhere. That's the key with him. He's versatile. He can play every single spot that's asked from at the linebacker spot. Coming from Alabama, he's pro-ready. There you go. Linebacking depth. Cha-ching! Upset as an Eagle fan because Eagles need linebackers just as bad as the Cowboys do. And now there's no good linebackers left. So, moving on. Freaking Dallas Cowboys. Pick number 20. We have the Seattle Seahawks in mock draft 1. For the Seahawks, we have them selecting Braden Smith, the offensive lineman from Auburn. In this mock draft, we have them selecting a corner that has slipped. It is Josh Jackson, the corner from Iowa. It's time to start planning and preparing for life beyond the Legion of Boom. There's rumors and stuff like that. Oh my God, is Earl Thomas going to go to the Cowboys and stuff like that without imploding? But when I look at the Seahawks, I think what you have in, I can't remember his name at the top of my head. I wish I did. The corner they have from UCF, Shaq Griffin. I think Shaq Griffin's solid, but in terms of depth, you saw the panic move with Byron Maxwell, and he's not that good. And Rich Sherman's getting up to that age where I wouldn't be surprised to see Sherman be a cap casualty somewhere. Go out and have a chance. Of course, the Seahawks get the best corner in this year's draft class at pick 20. Just sitting there, low-hanging fruit, just for them to pluck down and be like, we're just gonna reload, have Legion of Boom 2.0. It's still a ways away, but I think when you are the Seahawks, it's never a bad thing to have too many corners, and it seems like they've struggled to stay healthy throughout the season at that cornerback spot. And Josh Jackson, I know offensive line is a big-time need, and I hope to God, if you're a Seahawks fan, that they don't go offensive line in the first round. You're getting at least 3 offensive linemen throughout the draft, but a guy like Josh Jackson, that is worth the risk and gamble of getting an offensive lineman later. It'd be a beast pick for the Seattle Seahawks. Going to pick number 21, we have the Tennessee Titans, who in mock draft number 1, I had the Titans selecting Harold Landry, the edge rusher from Boston College. He'd be an outside linebacker. In this draft, I was selecting Clellan Ferrell, the defensive end from Clemson, who could be a down lineman. Not so much like the other Clemson prospect, Kevin Dodd. I think Clellan Ferrell is a much better player. And when you look at the Tennessee Titans, they are a pretty, complete roster. It's more so the inconsistent play from the offense that's kind of bugged them a little bit. Marcus Mariota in particular. But, you can assume that he can put it all together. Corey Davis is going to be a year, more developed. I think Davis is an absolute stud. I mean, they could look at the tight end position, but they have John O. Smith, and Delaney Walker doesn't really look like he's slowing down. Very good offensive line. Running backs are fine. So when you look at the defense, they did invest a lot of money in the secondary. Byard's pretty good. Logan Ryan's serviceable. Then you go move down to the linebackers. They could definitely use another linebacker, which is why we had Harold Landry in the first draft. But, make it a little bit different, and as well as being a potential upgrade, I think a guy like Clellan Ferrell would definitely, add a lot more intimidation to that defensive front. That right now it's just Jarrell Casey, and that's pretty much it. So I think a guy like Clellan Ferrell, who's very good at getting after the quarterback, would be a nice fit for the Tennessee Titans at defensive end. Going to pick number 22, we have the Baltimore Ravens, who in mock draft 1, we have the Ravens selecting Deon Cain, the wide receiver from Clemson. Here we have them staying at the wide receiver spot. I have them going Cortland Sutton, the wide receiver from SMU. I kind of think there's a log jam after Calvin Ridley at the wide receiver spot. We're going to find out a lot more from the Senior Bowl and a lot more from the Combine. But it's a matchup league. When you look at the wide receivers that the Ravens have, when I went with Deon Cain, he's kind of more in that Mike Wallace, Jerry Maclin role. They don't have that big-bodied monster type guy that kind of complements what they already have. And I think a guy like Cortland Sutton, 6'4", jump ball specialist, really solid hands. And, again, he's kind of a little bit more of a risky prospect. I think after Calvin Ridley, all the wide receivers kind of have that boomer bust territory tag to them. But I think with Cortland Sutton, at least you're getting a compliment. If he doesn't turn out to be a legit wide receiver 1, he is still going to be a red zone threat. And that is kind of what I think the Baltimore Ravens are lacking at the wide receiver spot. Plus, he also has an incredibly high ceiling, I believe, if he can get the right kind of development. I don't know if you're going to get that with Joe Flacco as your quarterback, but I think when you're the Baltimore Ravens, they need to go out in there and get a wide receiver. And with Calvin Ridley already off the board, you go with the guy that's the best complement to what they already have, and I think that is going to be Cortland Sutton. Moving to pick number 23, we have the Atlanta Falcons. And in mock draft 1, we have the Falcons taking Derwin James, the safety from Florida State. So luckily, he's already off the board. We don't have to worry about Keanu O'Neal and Derwin James on the same team, but I have them still staying in the secondary. I have them going with Denzel Ward, the corner from Ohio State. When you look at the Atlanta Falcons this year, their team, their roster is really, really good. Where is an area that they can improve upon? They could go maybe wide receiver, but they're fine there with Sanu and Julio Jones. Maybe getting an Anthony Miller to replace what they're going to lose in Taylor Gabriel, that could be fine, but that's good. Offensive lineman might be good, but with no Quentin Nelson, is there really a guy here that they want to look at? I mean, Braden Smith maybe. But for me, when I'm looking at the defense, I don't think any corner has an interception on the team outside of Desmond Trufant. And I like Bradley Poole. I mean, you got Alford, who's solid. But that's just simply unacceptable for a team that doesn't have a lot of holes. And you look at where they need to improve, they need to get more turnovers in that secondary. Keanu O'Neal is a monster against the run. He's a feared tackler. He's not a guy that's going to get you, 5 or 6 pick six. It's like Deion Jones is the second best guy in pass coverage on this team. So I think they should go out, get a guy like Denzel Ward, who personally I'm not super high on as a prospect, but a lot of guys consider him a bona fide first-round talent. If they want to go out there and get a corner, a guy like Denzel Ward for, Dan Quinn, who's not afraid to get smaller type players and start them. We've seen that with, like I said, Brian Poole and Alford. Denzel Ward, who's sub 6 feet tall, kind of, is a player that some teams may shy away from because of the lack of length. Dan Quinn will not. And, maybe he could be a guy that can add a little bit more in terms of getting turnovers in that secondary than what they currently have. So that is where I have the Falcons going. Who do I have them taking? Did I already say? Yes, I did. Derwin James. All right, moving on. Pick number 24, the second pick for the Buffalo Bills. In my first mock draft, I have them going to Ron Payne, who we already have them taking with their first pick at 17. So now we're at 24. They're getting the replacement. It looks like Tyrod Taylor's era is over. So we have them going with another mobile quarterback in Lamar Jackson, the quarterback from Louisville. Now, this is a lazy comparison, but when you look at Sean McDermott since he's been at DC, pretty much all the quarterbacks he's ever had on his teams have been mobile in some regard. He had Donovan McNabb in Philadelphia, Michael Vick in Philadelphia, Cam Newton in Carolina. Now he's at Tyrod, something like that. So maybe he wants to buck the trend, but if not, if that's what he wants in his quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson's a fit. And when you look at Lamar Jackson, sure, there's a lot of boomer bust. Sure, there's the tag. Can he be a quarterback at the next level? but I don't think Lamar Jackson's talent is that far off of Deshaun Watson. I'm a big fan of Deshaun Watson. He's probably my next favorite quarterback after Carson Wentz in the NFL, and I was a huge fan of him at Clemson. And I'm a big fan of Lamar Jackson. When you look at their games, they're not too far off. I think Deshaun Watson was a little bit more refined, had a little bit better, football mind, if you will. But I think Lamar Jackson has all the upside in the world. I think Buffalo will be a nice landing spot for him to go and for the Bills to get their future franchise quarterback. Hell, you could have even Tyron. Somehow re-sign him just to stay there as the stopgap, kind of like what we did in this mock draft earlier with the Giants. It could be fun. But I think Lamar Jackson, the Bills, is something I could certainly get behind, which is why I had them taking him at pick 24. Go to pick 25. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who in mock draft number 1, we had the Jags going Baker Mayfield, the quarterback from Oklahoma, but he's already out the board. And you've seen with Blake Bortles, I think the Jags are a prime candidate to get a veteran quarterback rather than drafting one right away. Or hell, maybe they'll stay with Blake Bortles. Maybe Blake Bortles seems eerily similar to what happened when the Ravens won the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. Couldn't you see, Joe Flacco, everyone knew he wasn't really that elite of a quarterback, still won the Super Bowl. You had to pay him. You had to stick with him. I could somehow, some way see that happening with Blake Bortles. I'm not going to say the Jags win the Super Bowl, but the Jags could somehow find a way, say, to the AFC Championship. They may not be inclined to get another quarterback or to move on from Bortles, or at the very least, invest their first-round draft pick in the quarterback spot. So I've been going tight end with Mark Andrews from Oklahoma. Get that tight end. Mercedes Lewis is 95 years old. Improve that offense. Whatever quarterback you're going to have, they have insane talent at the wide receiver spot, especially if they can re-sign Allen Robinson. Maybe they won't. Keelan Cole having big games. You still got Allen Hurts under contract. And Marquise Lee, you may just, I think it'd be a mistake, but they may just let Allen Robinson walk. Get another weapon in there. Get Mark Andrews, who I think is a definite first-round talent at the tight end spot, the number 1 tight end in this year's draft class. Mismatch nightmare. Go and get him. Get another weapon to add and build on that offense, because that defense is really, really good. I think they don't go tight end, and they want to stay on the offense, not including the quarterback. They could still... you can always get an offensive lineman and a guard, maybe like a Braden Smith. All right, moving on to pick number 26. We have the Carolina Panthers, and in mock draft 1, I have the Panthers going Ronnie Harrison, the safety from Alabama. And this mock draft stays the exact same. Ronnie Harrison, safety from Alabama. You look at the safeties at the Panthers currently have at their disposal. Old. Mike Adams is old. Kirk Cousins, Kurt Coleman, former Philadelphia Eagle great, got murdered by Trent Richardson once. Getting old. They have no real promising prospects at that safety spot unless they somehow, someway just want to get funky with it and move Shaq Thompson back to safety because he played a little bit of safety at Washington. Go and get Ronnie Harrison. Ronnie Harrison, again, just kind of a product of a strong draft class. If Derwin James, this was a different year, if he could somehow wait a year and declare, he'd probably be the best safety next year. He is a guy that is I would say probably fringe top 15 talent, still dripping around here. Laugh for the Panthers. Tremendous pick for Carolina, so they should go and get him. At pick 27, we have the New Orleans Saints, who in mock draft 1, we have the Saints going Clelin Ferrell, the defensive end from Clemson. He's no longer on the board, so I have them going James Washington, the wide receiver from Oklahoma State. Assuming that Drew Brees is back, when you look at that team, Mike Thomas is a verified, certified wide receiver 1. But who do they have outside of that? It's very nice to have Alvin Kamara at the backfield, but, 10 kids old. Brandon Coleman, Willie Snead probably will leave during free agency. Get a compliment to Mike Thomas. Mike Thomas is your standard stud possession receiver. You get a guy like James Washington that's a burner, can take over that Ted Ginn role, but he's not 35. He has that upside. I think James Washington would be a very good complement to what they already have on that offense and that deep threat that they very well could need. Lots of upside. Again, pretty much like I said, every wide receiver after Calvin Ridley has that boomer bust kind of territory. There's no guy that's incredibly well-rounded after Calvin Ridley. But for a deep threat, for a guy that's proven as a deep threat and probably has all the tools to do it at the NFL level, I think James Washington is the pick here for the Saints. Go to pick number 28. We have the LA Rams, who in mock draft 1, we had the Rams selecting Tarvaris McFadden, the corner from Florida State. Here, switching up a little bit, still staying at the cornerback spot because they may lose, if they lose Tremaine Johnson, they pretty much have no one back there at the cornerback spot. So I have them going Isaiah Oliver, the cornerback from Colorado. I'm still not 100% sold on my personal cornerback rankings, but I think Isaiah Oliver is right there with Tarvaris McFadden, kind of flip-flopping between the two. Very similar types of style. I think you get a little bit more athletic ability from Isaiah Oliver. They can't go wrong. I think the position is right for the Rams at the cornerback spot. Be it Isaiah Oliver, who I have here, Tarvaris McFadden, I'll probably flip-flop back and forth between that as I get to a little bit more of a established opinion, if you will, of my cornerback rankings. But either Oliver or McFadden would be great fits here for the Rams at pick 28. Going to pick number 29, we have the Minnesota Vikings, who in mock draft 1, I have them going Mo Hurst, the D-tackle from Michigan. Now I have them going Braden Smith, the offensive guard from Auburn. When you look at what they're trying to do next year with a healthy Dalvin Cook, they are going to run the rock, and their offensive line has played very well this year. But Joe Berger's literally like 37 years old. I don't know how much longer to get from Matt, and if he leaves, there is a big hole on that offensive line. The defense can survive without a Mo Hurst, but can the offense survive with a big gap at that tackle, at that guard spot, knowing that they really kind of need the balanced offense? They need to run the ball regardless of who their QB is. If they stick with Keenum, they're going to need to rely on Dalvin Cook, Jerick McKinnon. I don't know if McKinnon's coming back or not, but Cook and Latavius Murray. So go and get the best offensive lineman. Braden Smith, very, very versatile, can play guard, can play tackle, should be very, very athletic, test well at the combine. I think it's an easy pick here for the Minnesota Vikings. Going to pick number 30, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who in mock draft 1, I have the Steelers going Mark Andrews, the tight end from Oklahoma. Now, with the uncertainty of Shazier, they need to get a linebacker. So this was a tough one. I think Tremaine Edmonds just did not make the cut. I went with Josh Allen, the linebacker from Kentucky, not the quarterback. I've just haven't watched a whole lot of tape yet on Tremaine Edmonds, and I've, obviously Josh Allen, I've seen him at Kentucky a couple times in the SEC, and he's very good, man. He can do it all. He is a little bit, I think when you look at Edmonds, I think we get with Josh Allen's a little bit more well-roundedness. I think he's a little bit better at rushing the quarterback, but still, both these guys are big linebackers, very, very same mold. But I think the Steelers here, if they don't go tight end, they pretty much need to prepare for worst-case scenario with Ryan Shazier injury and get a linebacker. So, again, kind of not a solid pick like when I talk about the Rams, so they go McFadden or Oliver. I'm still kind of here with the Steelers. They can go Josh Allen, they go Tremaine Edmonds, maybe Jerome Baker if they really want, and try to get literally a like-for-like replacement with what they got when Shazier came out of Ohio State. But I think linebacker is a pick for the Steelers, and I just think Josh Allen would be a great fit on that defense. Go to pick number 31, we have the New England Patriots, who in mock draft 1, we have the Patriots going with Shawn Evans, the linebacker from Alabama. He's been off the board for a long time, but staying with similar position, either going Harold Landry, the edge rusher from Boston College. Staying within the state, I think when you look at the Patriots linebacking core, they haven't had that guy that can kind of take over from Ninkovich. They probably wouldn't ideally maybe want a guy that could be an inside linebacker, but right now with Kyle Van Noy being the Ninkovich, I think you can get an upgrade over there. Van Noy is not bad. He's solid. He's serviceable. But I think a guy like Harold Landry truly could excel in that Ninkovich linebacker hybrid defensive end for that multiple front defense that Belichick wants to sometimes. Like, literally, I can't answer. To this day, I get stuck where I live in Canada watching so many Patriot games. I have no idea what their scheme is. I would assume it's a 3-4, but they literally, it seems like they just, we'll just say it's a multiple defense for going into Madden terms. I think a guy like Harold Landry, best player available, could very well be a top 15 pick. And if he's still here for the Patriots, they could definitely view him as the next Ninkovich role type linebacker on that team, and they jump all over that. Finishing up with the number 32 pick, we have my Philadelphia Eagles, who in mock draft 1, we have them going with Chukwuma Okorafor, the tackle from Michigan. I am going with a hot pick. Might as well for my team. And it's a tackle spot, because when I look at this team right now, we need a linebacker, but all the linebackers are gone. We could very well go maybe Tremaine Edmonds here, going by how my mock draft went, or Jerome Baker if we want. But I still think the biggest weakness is what happens with Jason Peters. Big V cannot be an offensive lineman. It looks like they want to keep Lane Johnson at right tackle. So who is right now in the NFL, in college, a guy that I think available could play left tackle as a rookie? And I'm going with Brian O'Neill, the tackle from Pitt. Pro Football Focus had him as graded one of the best offensive tackles in the country as far as pass protection. I do not need a big mauler that can run block and stick him at tackle like we're doing with Big V. I want a guy that can protect Carson Wentz. Luckily enough, Carson Wentz, when the play breaks up and he has literally no pocket, he can somehow, like a wizard, create something out of nothing. Give me the best pass blocking tackle that has a lot of upside, and I think that is going to be Brian O'Neill from Pitt. Surprising pick. I don't think you're going to find a whole lot of people talking about O'Neill, but I think when you look at the tape, when you look at how he will test at the combine, hopefully he'll go to, I don't actually think he can go to the Senior Bowl. I think he is a junior. But the more and more I look at it, the more and more I watch Pitt play. I mean, it's Pitt. They don't have a lot of passing plays. Max Brown was terrible this year for them. But when you look at Brian O'Neill, he's grading out very, very well. And in terms of a pass protection first offensive tackle that can play left, give me Brian O'Neill right now. This Eagles pick obviously is going to change probably 15 times before the draft officially comes there and I can settle on my number 1 pick. But it still, at the end of the day, could very well be Brian O'Neill come April, who I think is the best fit for the Philadelphia Eagles. So there you go, guys. That is my mock draft 2.0. No Arden Key, no Mo Hurst. couple other picks we definitely left off. I'm sure you'll let me know in the comment section below. But for all you guys, all you savages that sat through almost an hour of this, thank you very much. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree or disagree with any of the picks I made for your teams. Like I said, still plenty of time for my next mock draft. You can maybe change my opinion on stuff. I'm doing them probably the last week of every month, give or take. So yeah, let me know about that. If it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.